My name is Peter Lube, born and raised in Kakamega County. My life, as a personal experience, has been a unique one. I was born to teachers. Both mom and dad were teachers, the primary level, and they are it's a couple that met in Nairobi, sure in the early '60s. So the experience I have of my dad, who was a teacher or something when they lived in Nairobi and went back to the country for what mom said, a proper environment for raising kids. So I'm a fourth born in a family of seven. And I remember back in days when things were so good or something, and we looked up to our parents knowing our future would be bright. But down the line, somewhere down the line, I think dad came up to a point where he felt he had to get his young love, number two young love. So he brought home our stepmother, um, an experience that, you know, didn't go well with us, because, I was shocked why dad would bring somebody home when mom was good to go. So I went to my mom and told mom, hey, dad is brought home his young love. How does it make you feel or something? Mom told me, hey, that's fine for me because I think I've got to help or something. So if she's come to assist me down the journey, then that will be fine. So my grandmother was there or something, and she was like, hey, my son, you've done something good for me. So I think we will have a good journey down the way or something. But after a little while or something, we noticed things were not the way they were supposed to be or something. Dad didn't really have to care, like, if he had a family with kids or something, but, concentrate on what he should not have done at the right time. The year of the happenings was 1985. 1985, I was, to be precise, 14 years old. So you can imagine what it did to us, as young as we were back in the days. To our stepmother was as young as almost our family members, because dad was a 1940 born, so getting married to a lady probably half his age was quite a surprise. Now, when we attended school throughout primary school to join secondary, you can imagine the pressure, external pressure on us as we went to school, knowing that it shifted. What it meant, responsible wise, was my hey, mom had to take care of us single handedly. Dad had shifted. He had met his new experience and he wanted to have a go. So I finished my primary school and joined secondary school at Mohila High School. It's a boys' school where I joined in Form 1 1988. That was there 1989. It was my second year. But I had to go to another secondary school together, MCA High School. That was in 1990. So I joined MCA High School 1990 as a new student. Down the line, when I did my studies and attended school or something, because that was a boarding school or something, there were challenges, school arrears, school fees arrears and stuff. And I didn't see my father figure, in the picture of things. So somehow it interfered with my school concentration because I knew we were on our own with our mom. And dad didn't give a damn about what was happening or something. So I had to continue learning or something. By 1991, that was the year we were supposed to do a KCSE examination. I had school fees arrears. I traveled home to break the news to my mom and dad, like, hey, you've not paid school fees for a while. What's going to happen or what's happening? So when I went home, I think mom, through Teacher Service Commission, I think spoke to Cooperative Bank for a check of, I think, was it 3,500? So I was given a check to present to school for arrears clearance or something, which I did. So I concentrated my studies knowing, hey, I will be taking part in the national examination that same year, 1991. So that never happened. When I went back to the administration block, specifically the bursary, the BASA, the school BASA, to inquire if I'll be on the list for the students who'll be taking part in the national examination, he directed me to the deputy headmaster of our school, So I booked an appointment with him. I went to him and I said, I think I hope I'll be doing exams. He said, Peter, it's unfortunate you were never registered. I said, but how did you do that? I presented a check of 3,500 to you guys. How come I'm missing out on my national examination? So that was it. There was no way. He told me there's nothing we can do. To the best of our knowledge, you're not going to be writing this year. So I think it will be best for you either to continue learning or just go home or something. So I went to the school dormitory, picked up my box, my books, my stuff or something, and I hit the road towards home. When I went home and broke the news to Dad, he didn't give a hoot or something. So he said, Peter, I think what you can do, just see what you can do. You've come of age or something. So he didn't have like an answer or something. Mom told me, hey, I think we're stuck in the middle of nowhere. While we stuck, Mommy said, hey, your dad doesn't really give a hoot what's happening with us. So I think the only thing you can do is see how you can fend for yourself from this point forward. So I told Mom, but Mom, I'd never done anything else, like maybe trying a business or something. What is it I would do besides learning? I've not even done my exams or something. So how would I like hook up with the country in terms of, probably employment, whatever it is that I can do? So at that point, that's when I made a decision to hey, let me forget about learning. Let me forget about schooling or something. See what I can do to put something on the table. See if we can assist Mom, pull through because, there were like 3 others behind me. So when I started discussing with friends, what might have been or something that Dad did this, because we came and noticed, Dad in his school days, as a teacher of primary school somewhere in Kakamega, had hooked up with basically a pupil, maybe like a student or something, a lady my dad had taught as a student. This is the same lady Dad had brought home on that particular night, get a point. So we didn't really get to understand Dad's position for him to have picked up with my stepmother, you get a point, because Mom was good in her responsibilities. Mom was a working class lady and she had done her best. It was Mom who gave Dad an opportunity to work for Teacher Service Commission. Because, I think she got employed ahead of Dad. So Dad had to get a house different from ours where he would attend to his new wife. We didn't have any children at the point. So we stayed in the same homestead as 2 different families. Our first family and his other new love. So what we noticed was, Dad didn't really care what happened to the first family or something, So Patrick, that was our firstborn, and there was Mildred, there was Florence, that were ahead of me or something, had to discontinue their school because Mom wouldn't manage, you get a point. So it was retrogressive, it was negative, but we didn't have a solution to that. But what I'm wondering about is what pushes men to get to the point where they would leave their first wives for their younger love. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something a man gets to think like, hey, I think when I was in my teenage, I didn't do enough. I didn't have a wide range of choices to pick on somebody or to see what I would need in the life that I would live, as an adult person. So as much as we wondered what had driven Dad to that point or something, we saw his life come back with his new wife or something, going on having time out with them, traveling out like for the weekend or something, hitchhiking or something, having photographs, You can imagine an elderly man with a young lady, in the homestead, doing their thing, their boy girl thing or something. So responsibility-wise, I think this affected us because Dad had stopped doing what every father, every man would do for the family, like mostly the first family, and the first wife he had given his love to. As we wanted or something, the ground shifted, and it was like having 2 kingdoms in the home. The first family and the second family, my stepmother and my mom. It was like the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. It got to a point where the battle line had been drawn. And Dad had been told that, at no point would you visit your first family because this is your new home. This is where you're going to be for as long as you live. So mom was never a violent lady. Um, as a teacher, I think she was raised well. She was brought up in a good family. And she always told us, hey, remember that's your stepmother and that's your dad. And whatever conflict I have with him should not give you a reason as his children to disobey him. Don't misbehave, continue with your discipline, keep on the right track. Be the good children you've always been since you're born or something, so that we don't have a disappointment or something. So that was it. Patrick, who had been was our firstborn, had to get something else to do because he had he was the eldest and he had done his sorry, it's fine. So Patrick, who had finished his secondary school and had gotten something to do, had become like our father figure because he was the guy who would do something for us. So we continued like that, in the sense that even our grandmother had told dad, my son, I want you to go forward and get a lady who's not as schooled as your first wife. So dad responded to the mother's piece of advice, was our grandmother. So our life continued, and my stepmother didn't have children for quite a while. Then I don't know if it was a problem of her condition, her health condition, in terms of not being able to conceive or something. But dad had to give it everything at his stake to make sure that our stepmother got the right treatment, or rather, right attention to attend to her problem or something. So down the struggles, they travel to hospitals and they try whatever there is that any man could do for his new love to make sure that he had to establish his second family. So as we grew older, dad with his struggles, was trying how my stepmother would be able to be able to conceive, and create a family of her own, So dad would be responsible again as a father on this other part of the family. So down the line, we sat and we had to admit and accept the fact that, dad had moved on, had found what tickled his young minds in his elderly age or something that, he had to make that kind of decision. So what I would tell men is I think maybe it's inherent. Maybe it's something somebody picks up down the line. Maybe our grandfather probably had several wives. So dad was only repeating what his dad had done in his own time. But in our time, what I think is, when you get in a crisis like that one, hey, don't ever forget about your first family because that was the very first love you ever came across. That was the first point you became a dad or something. So we've come to terms, as now bigger men than we were back in the 80s. We've come to the age of our father when he made that decision or something. And I think we just have to do something better than what our dad did. My word to fellow men will be like, hey, as much as your first wife will be not the kind of partner you would have wanted to team up with, there's always a better decision to do. If you wanted to meet your new love and probably continue with another person, also make sure your responsibilities as a father to the two families is up to the taste. Don't abandon the first family for the second because you don't want to face up with your responsibilities and just do the right thing. So I think what you should do, or what men at that point should do, is you have to differentiate between the first family department and the second one in terms of, to avert violence that is domestic, that might affect children who may find it really hard to come to terms with what is happening between the parents. So this has been my experience, our experience for a long time. We can now feel the side effects of that crisis because now dad, who's now over 80 years old now, looks down the line, down upon us to support him. But I don't think we can do much because, dad did invest in us, education-wise and career-wise, as a father would do for his children. So I don't know what dad would do now because I think he's stuck in the middle of nowhere. He has now young children from must have mother who not yet working class. And us from the first family, are not people with better jobs that would really do much or rather enough for our dad. So dad is caught in the middle of nowhere in terms of, hey, dad, there's nobody who's doing very well to be able to take care of you now that you're retired. So this is the challenge. This is the crisis that gets to men when they get to an age my father has gotten to. So my feeling will be, as men, let's identify, let's get to the point and be realistic. As much as we may want to have this other experience of the second wave or something, that let us first have troubleshoot and see what decisions can we make that wouldn't conflict with the first arrangement. And I think if we did that, I think the crisis will come to an end in a manner that, would decrease and not be an increasing kind of design. So I'm talking to my fellow men that whatever it is, hey, be careful, bro. Be careful, because I don't think it's a good experience. And if you have to get to that, then you must have to be in a position to manage what's coming. So that's my point, and that's my experience.
Big shout out to Vince on the beat, by the way.
Sifu Bwana daima, moyo wangu sifu Bwana daima. 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 Nakusifu
whether rich ama poor, juu najua utacheza kama wewe. Nikikanyanga kanyanga chini na stop shetani akemewe. Imboka imejipe na ni nice, nikijua for my freedom and you had to pay the price. Ukiniona nimechizi nikisifu sishangae kuniona na upako, na ukitaka mpe maisha yako, na si utani nje upate thamani, usiwache shetani akukalie chapo. Wendo jua mali uniweka, sitishiwi na mali ya mapesa. Juu ya dunia ni ya kupita, ipo siku mbinguni tafika. Mfanya msafi dhambi ukanfuta, siwezi kukupay for all this grace. Maisha yangu when you controller, haijalishi nini mina face. Samini mali juu yako, omera tuliwacha kusandore. So tumsifu Bwana, sifu Bwana daima, moyo wangu sifu Bwana daima. 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 Nakusifu
tena kila siku, wendo kila kitu, tena kila saa, vile inafaa, vile inafaa, nataka nisifu. Daily naona mkono wako, wendo unafungua milango, bado unatenda maajabu. siezi hata count time nimefikiria na joka ni show wendo bado bazeng ka niko down au niko juu haina issue najua vile history na end twende na plan yako juu yangu ni kufuata penye unaongoza my friend yake ndo crown hizi zingine zinanga uzito mbele ya Elohim naona my blessing naona mapenzi amazing grace ni soundtrack ya play ya maisha ya mine naanzanga days na prayer na smile na peace of mind daily naona mkono wako wendo unafungua milango bado unatenda maajabu
sifu Bwana daima moyo wangu sifu Bwana daima sifu Bwana daima moyo wangu sifu Bwana daima.
So basically speaking, just like I've spoken, that's what it is. So when I look back at what Dad did back in the days, precisely 1985, I also feel the same challenge. Like, is it something that is inherent or is it genetic? Because when I was having a discussion with my dad about how grandfather was, what he told me was grandfather had 4 wives. And I believe he passed on when Dad was, I think, more of a toddler or something, because he can't remember seeing his dad or something. Possibly if he had spoken to his dad, who is my grandfather, he might have understood if it was something that, ran in the lineage. So basically speaking, I have come to the age of my dad, the age of 50 years old. And I also have a feeling like, hey, apart from my first wife, like, I wouldn't really mind having a younger love. Simply because, when a wife bears several children and she gets down to work in her position as your wife, there's a lot more than the romantic part of life. So I think my wife wouldn't give me 100% of her time to let me frolic and do other kind of stuff or something. So possibly if I wanted to have my external fun, possibly I would find my way out. So now what beats me is that if I get to do this kind of decision, this kind of thing, get another wife or another young lover or something, I don't know if it's going to affect my first family. Because I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and I don't want them to suffer anything. I would love to be a responsible dad as I have been back in the days to this point. And I would want them to have the best ever life for the future that is coming. What I feel is probably, I think when wives with your husbands, for a long time, a period as long as 20 to 30 years, there's always a feeling that I think that somebody may not up to the task of doing the things they did when they were young, or rather when they were still raising kids or something. But down the line, also get to a point where, ladies don't really look at men who are elderly as old men. I don't know what it is from ladies they see in a man who's much ahead of them in terms of age. I don't know if it's just the content, if it's the liking ladies have towards men that drives them to have a relationship with a man who's much older than her. So in my discussion with Dad, as late as last week, Dad is still vibed, and he looks down the line to the family he got from a stepmother. They were mostly ladies, or rather girls. Dad has had a challenge, putting up with them because none of the younger family children are working. And Dad looks up to us like, hey, I'm retired, and I think this is the time when my children take care of me. But in my candid discussion with my dad was, Dad, you know what happened back in the days? We didn't continue with our secondary school education. We didn't attend college. We didn't do what had to be done by people our age back in the days because you had taken a different course, you had shifted off the main way. You're only getting back to us because now that you wouldn't be doing the job you were doing before. You were not on the payroll of Teacher Service Commission because you were retired. And whatever little you get every end of the month as the stipend for the retired people wouldn't be enough to cater for your needs. Dad has raised concern and issue with his children in terms of, because they're not employed and not responsible enough, so they wouldn't be able to take care of him. As much as I may be willing to do something for my dad or something, I may not have the kind of money, the kind of provision to cater for the needs of my dad. It could be medical, it can be whatever he needs day in, day out. Because I have my family, and all the best I can do is to take care of it. I wouldn't mind doing something for my dad if I had enough, or rather a surplus in terms of, revenue, because he's my dad or something, and I wouldn't deny that fact or something. But I can't live my life with my family, my kids and my wife for anything else. But as much as I may say that or something, I don't really hate what my dad did. To some point, I think I would support him because, men are different from women. The drive with men is lethal, it's active, and 100% potential. So I think my dad, felt, he didn't want the boring life of, handling kids' issues every other time. And he wanted to break off, have an experience with his young love, who was his pupil at some point or something, as partners. So I'm trying to think if it's something that we the sons inherit from our fathers. Because as they say, there's a phrase that says, we're sons of our fathers. And the sins of a father normally are visited on the sons. So probably I think I'm harvesting what my dad planted, probably genetic-wise, because when he did that, we had blamed my dad, we had called him out for the decision he had taken. Though Mom was never violent, Mom has stand up to the very last time was she would be willing to join hands with her colleague, that is my stepmother, in making sure that, they would do their responsibilities as the wives of one man, the wives to one man. So I commend my mother for being mature enough, and she never got worked up. She continued with her life as a teacher. She continued her responsibilities as an able mother, despite the fact Dad had shifted his stand. So I think when we grew up as her children, we must have been made tough in the sense like, hey, get used to these as early as now so you can know how to walk through it and walk away from hatred that is likely to shoot up because of the things your dad did by having to bring somebody or someone else into our home. So that stand with my comparison with what's happening at the moment or something is, hey, I might also be tempted to walk down the road my dad walked. Basically because I think I might be seeing the things my dad saw back in the days. So I think when he went out to work, on his way back home or something, he must have seen things on the way. Probably based on his peer influence or something, he might have had an opinion that, he could also be part of that journey. So as much as Dad did that or something, and as I come of this age today, I feel that naturally it's something that gets to men. Probably the only mistake was, Dad, for him to have brought my stepmother into a homestead. If he had gotten a different place away from our home, probably we wouldn't have noticed what he had done. We would not have cautioned him, we would not have called him out, we would not have looked at him as somebody who abandoned his children. But today, if I was to do something to the nature of what my dad did or something, I think I wouldn't bring my second wife to our first home. I would have to get a place far much away from my first family to the point that, hey, that would be her home and not our home. So I would have enough time to attend to my children and my first wife, because that's the only thing you can ever take away from your first family. They were the first ones. They were the original ones. If you want to have your second love or something, hey, get your own place. Get a different place, get a different setup, get a different arrangement, financial arrangement for them so that, you're not a disappointment. So as much as I may want to probably have to venture into that or something, I pray that I'm in a better position than my dad, because my dad did invest well. So he also expected my mom to help him, bring up his second family or something my mom wouldn't do, for one that, we were already there and too much for her to kind of handle or something, or rather manage. So my point would be as much as that is a situation or something, I think as a man, you need to have enough money, enough resources, good wealth, to be able to afford what might happen in the second part of this journey, the second love. So, but I think also with wives, I think there's a situation where wives also, based on the pressure of this life, the tension of what they go through day in, day out, having to work, going to work very early in the morning, coming back home very late, having kids to look after or something, being responsible in terms of, monetary terms or something, that was too much. It is still too much today. But I think men look beyond the responsibility issue in terms of, what they might need as, men, in terms of, would they still impress on the other side of life? So people wouldn't think when you age in terms of age, you're not also able to come up or rather respond as a man from the other side. So I think, basically speaking, that's the whole point, that, hey, it's tempting, it's attractive, it's too cohesive. I don't know if it's because, by having to see or rather experience what my dad was doing, I literally borrowed from him. Because, my stepmother was about our age. My sisters and brother who were ahead of me or something were not far from her age. So basically speaking, what it means is mostly you look at your first wife as somebody maybe who's not of the time, or rather her style has passed on. So you need to catch up with something current, something younger than what you have always been having. So I think that being the experience, I think it pushes men to the brink of having to feel, hey, I think we can do this. We can do this. We can try this and see how it feels. So my mind will be, if you really have to do that, man, hey, prepare your finances in terms of, you are a responsible father and you can be able to handle your second family. You can't be ready for the second family if you can't take care of the first one. Because you see, dad didn't take us to college, so we didn't finish school in good time. We had to struggle just after that time because, there was nothing else to do. You wouldn't go to school if somebody was not ready to pay for your school fees. You wouldn't even get to college without the right credentials from high school. So that's the only mistake I think my dad did, because he didn't look at investment in terms of his children's future, in terms of, hey, as much as I may bring a new love in the home or something, I'm also of the mind that, hey, you guys need to go to school, you need to finish high school and get to college to get employment. If dad had done that, I don't think he'd be struggling the way he's doing now. Because, and I pity my dad, not because of anything, but because I don't think I'm in a position to assist him so much. I may be of help in a small way, in a little way. But comparing at the bigger picture or something, I think it's a struggle. And dad right now, more than ever, he's tried to get back to us by communicating, catching up with us, how you doing or something, how is life or something. It's this current time that dad now realizes he did a mistake. He's never told us that was a mistake for him, but he's spoken to his friends out there that if he had known, he wouldn't have gotten himself in a situation he's in right now. Because my sisters and brothers from my stepmother didn't grow up with the ethics we grew up in our days. They have done the opposite of what we did back in the days, because dad wouldn't raise a hand on them. Basically because I think he loved my stepmother so much as not to touch on the children in terms of discipline. And as a teacher, as a parent, I think that's what dad should have done, for him to have raised or be able to raise children from the second family. He should have done what he did with us when we were growing up or something. I don't know if it was just hatred because, you know, he had a better option than my mom, and so we didn't mean much to him. But that was then when Dad was still strong, you know. He could still go to work and get his money and do his things or something. He had a lot of freedom at stake. But now, that competition, that kind of feeling is not what he has now. He's a man beyond 80 years, probably 82 years, who's lost energy and the vibes of, you know, a midlife crisis man would actually have. So my experience as a man or a young man from a family of polygamy is one of a bitter kind of environment, because when Dad leaves your house, that his first house, to another house, it's like having a personal loss. So my dad was, in terms of responsibility, a parental absentee. Dad was a parental absentee. He was never there for us. He never knew what it was we went through. He didn't care. He didn't provide. He didn't give a hoot for whatsoever reason. So that was the point. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And I think as soon as maybe next week we'll have another show. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Minadai, ulinipenda hata kama misifai. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Shaddai. Uko na kile minadai, ulinipenda hata kama misifai. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Shaddai.
He's an awesome God. Amenipa such an awesome song. And I'm never lonely. Amenipa such an awesome love. He is an awesome God, and I wanna tell it to the world. Ili wajue ni wewe, kama si wewe basi nani?
Nasikia landlord ako kwa njia anataka kodi, ni wewe uta provide. Na nina ngori moyoni zinanijaza wori.